I was stirring a pot of soup in my childhood kitchen, wearing an apron I didn't even own anymore, when it finally hit me. I didn't live here, I didn't owe anyone dinner, and I sure as hell wasn't the help. My parents had called me that morning, said they were going to a wedding, and asked if I could drop by to cook for Ryan so he wouldn't have to order takeout again. "You know how he is," Mom said. "He won't eat right if you don't." That wasn't new. I'd been feeding him since I was 12. But that day I had a husband at home, a career, a life that I built by clawing my way up from absolutely nothing, and still they expected me to pause it all for their favorite child. When I asked why Ryan couldn't just cook for himself, Dad laughed like I was telling a joke. "It's just one meal," he said. "Don't be dramatic." Funny. I don't remember anyone being this casual when I asked for help with college. I remember applying to 10 scholarships because my parents told me point blank they didn't have the money. "We're stretched thin," they said. "We wish we could help." And I believed them. Until 2 weeks later when they surprised Ryan with a brand new car to motivate him to go to class. He never did. But he loved driving that thing around, blasting music with his buddies, showing off like it was his earned right. I, meanwhile, juggled classes, night shifts, and debt. Still, I sent money home, because they said Ryan was trying to get into a private college and needed help with tuition. His grades weren't good enough for a public university. Mine had been near perfect, but no one cared. T.A. called me strong. Self-sufficient? The one who could handle things on her own, which is code for, "We're saving the good stuff for your brother." The day I snapped was supposed to be just another Sunday. I was making dumplings because my mother said that's what Ryan liked. He came downstairs, shirtless, yawning, rubbing his eyes like he'd just rolled out of a palace. He looked at the kitchen, nodded in approval, and said, "You're finally learning how to season the pork right." Then smiled like that was a compliment. I stared at him. He stared back. I asked slowly, carefully, "Do you not see anything wrong with this?" He blinked. "With what?" I pointed at the groceries I paid for, the kitchen I cleaned, the food I was cooking on my day off. "All of this," I said. "How is this okay to you?" He shrugged. "You're good at this stuff," he said. "Mom says you've always liked cooking." When I told my parents I wasn't coming back to help out anymore, they looked confused, hurt even. Mom said, "But you're his sister." Dad added, "He's under a lot of stress." Ryan had just gotten back from a weekend in Vegas. Stressful, I'm sure. And me? I went home that night and cried in the shower. Not because they used me. I was used to that. I cried because I finally realized they would never stop. Not until I said no. Not until I walked away and let them sit in the silence they kept mistaking for loyalty. Ryan met her online. At first I thought it was just one of those casual things. A girl he messaged late at night, maybe FaceTimed once or twice, but it got serious fast. He was texting her constantly, skipping meals, skipping family stuff. Then came the day he announced they were meeting in person. "She's flying in next weekend," he said, grinning like a teenager. "I think she might be the one." Dad raised an eyebrow. Mom looked nervous but smiled anyway. I said nothing. They met, spent 4 days together, and 2 weeks later he told us he was going to propose. "What?" I remember saying. "You've known her for what, a month?" "It just feels right," he said. "She gets me." Mom pulled me aside later and whispered, "We're trying to talk him out of it. He's just infatuated. It'll pass." It didn't pass. They fought about it. Dad brought up finances. Mom cried. Ryan stopped talking to them for a week. When they finally gave in, it wasn't because they approved. It was because they were afraid of losing him. "He's too fragile," Mom said. "If we push too hard, he'll cut us off." So they helped him plan the wedding. Small, rushed, barely any family invited, including me. I got a text. No formal invite, no role, no speech, just, "We're getting married Saturday. Hope you can make it." I didn't go. After the wedding, things shifted. At first, it was subtle. She started suggesting things, what they should buy, where they should live, how money should be handled. She didn't work, but somehow she was managing their bank accounts. Ryan, who used to be all over the place with his spending, suddenly had no control at all. "She's better at this stuff," he said when I asked. "She likes organizing things." Then came the big one. She thought it would be smarter if the family house and land were transferred to Ryan's name. "It's about future planning," she said to my parents over dinner. "You're not getting any younger, it's just practical." I nearly choked on my drink when Mom told me, You're not seriously considering that, are you? I asked. Mom looked down. Dad cleared his throat. It's just paperwork. We're still living here. It's just for security. For her security, I said. You don't see what's happening? They didn't. Or maybe they did, and just didn't want to admit it. Within 6 months, the property was officially transferred. Ryan and his wife moved in. My parents stayed in the guest room I visited a few weeks later. The house felt different, quieter, colder. She didn't speak much. Ryan hovered like a shadow, waiting for her to nod before answering questions. Mom looked tired. Dad barely said a word. After dinner, I pulled Ryan aside. You good? I asked. Yeah, he said. Everything's fine. You seem different. He laughed. I'm married now. That's what happens. I mean it. You used to be so close to Mom and Dad. Now it's like... I stopped. Like you belong to her now. We argued a few times after that. Nothing explosive, but tense. I brought up how he never helps around the house anymore. How Mom still cooks for him. How he snaps at Dad when asked to mow the lawn. He brushed it all off. You don't get it, he said. She's helping me grow. I'm becoming responsible. I wanted to scream. Then one afternoon I stopped by the house and found Mom scrubbing the bathroom floor. I asked where Ryan and his wife were. At the spa, she said. Weekend getaway, we gave them some money. Young couples need time to themselves. Something inside me cracked. You're still giving them money? I asked. It's just a little, she said. He's still figuring things out. I took a deep breath. You do realize he owns this house now, right? You live here at his mercy, and she's pulling the strings. Mom looked hurt. Don't say that. But she didn't deny it. Things boiled over when I came home one weekend to find 3 missed calls and 10 texts from Mom. She wanted me to come over and cook, again, because she and Dad had a wedding to attend and didn't want to leave the kids without a dinner. I had plans, a full schedule, but they didn't care. I showed up furious, spent 2 hours making food, cleaned the kitchen, then sat in silence while Ryan walked in, sniffed the air, and said, Glad someone around here knows how to make decent chicken. And that was it. I followed him to the living room. You know, I said, maybe next time you can cook for your wife. Or better yet, maybe she can cook for herself. He blinked. Why are you being so aggressive? Because I'm tired, I said. Tired of being your unpaid chef, your unpaid babysitter, your family's fallback plan. He smirked. Relax. You're acting like this is a big deal. It is a big deal, I said. You're a grown man. You're married. You own a house. And you treat our parents like staff. That's when he dropped it, casually, like it meant nothing. They transferred everything to me, remember? So technically, this is my house. My blood went cold. So you think that makes it okay to use them? He shrugged. They wanted to. I didn't force them. I left that night and didn't come back for months. And when I did, the house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like something had already been taken from us, and we hadn't even realized it yet. The last time I visited my parents' old house, it didn't feel like home anymore. There were new curtains in the living room, beige and cold, and the photo wall was gone. All the old family pictures, the ones that used to be the first thing you saw when you walked in, had been taken down, replaced by abstract art and minimalistic mirrors. The place looked like a catalog, lifeless, quiet, too quiet. My parents weren't there anymore, and neither were their things. They had moved out just 2 weeks earlier. Well, not really moved as much as displaced. Politely, strategically, coldly. It didn't happen overnight. It never does. It started months before with subtle cues and shifting boundaries. My mother began mentioning that Ryan's wife, let's call her Emily, had been a little overwhelmed lately. Emily wasn't sleeping well. The house felt crowded. She needed alone time. Nothing was said directly, of course. No one had the guts for that. Instead, it came through in sighs, awkward pauses, and avoidance. Mom started cooking less. Dad spent more time in the garage. The tension was always there, like static in the air, but no one acknowledged it. I remember one specific afternoon. I stopped by to drop off some groceries and found my mom scrubbing baseboards. She was wearing gloves that didn't fit and using a toothbrush to get into the corners. I asked why she was doing that, and she just smiled and said, Emily likes things neat. I looked around. The place was spotless, museum-level clean. And yet my mother, in her late 60s, was on her knees with a bucket of pine sol trying to keep the peace. I offered to help. She said no. She didn't want Emily to feel uncomfortable. Then the rules started. First it was about shoes. No shoes inside, even in the hallway. Then noise. TV volume had to stay below a certain level after 8 p.m. Then kitchen access. Emily didn't like people using the blender after she went to bed, even if it was 9:30. My dad liked smoothies. He stopped drinking them. These were boundaries, Ryan explained. Reasonable, modern, and respectful. She's big on mental health, he added one night over dinner. And shared spaces can be draining. I nodded, trying to keep my face neutral, but inside I was boiling. Shared space? It was their house. My parents weren't guests. They had built this home with their hands and hearts. But now they were being asked to behave like tenants. Quiet tenants. Then one Sunday evening, things shifted. We were sitting in the dining room, me, Ryan, Emily, who barely spoke, and our parents. The meal was tense. Mom had made roasted chicken, something Emily said she was trying to cut back on. Ryan picked at his plate. Emily excused herself halfway through and went upstairs. Then Ryan, still chewing, said it. So, we've been thinking. It might be time for you guys to consider your own place. The fork in my mom's hand stopped midair. My dad kept chewing slowly, but I saw his jaw tighten. I said nothing, just stared at Ryan. He looked uncomfortable, but determined. It's not like we want you to leave. It's just Emily's been stressed. Her therapist thinks this living situation isn't sustainable. My mom didn't respond. She just nodded, very slowly, and set her fork down. My dad muttered something under his breath and took a sip of water. Ryan, clearly trying to soften the blow, added, We would help, of course. We want you to have somewhere nice, somewhere peaceful. I couldn't hold it in anymore. They live here, Ryan, I said, louder than I intended. This is their house. He didn't flinch. They transferred the title. It's under my name now. That doesn't make it yours. He shrugged. It kinda does. I looked at my mom. Her eyes were glistening, but she forced a smile. It's okay. We understand. Young couples need space. That night I sat in my car for nearly an hour before driving home. I called my husband and cried the entire way. I wasn't crying just for them. I was crying because I knew without a doubt that this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something far worse. The following week my parents packed up 2 suitcases and a box of photo albums. They didn't take much. My mom said they didn't want to clutter the apartment I'd found for them. A tiny 2-bedroom above a laundromat. It wasn't glamorous, but it was clean and quiet. And more than anything, it was theirs. On move-out day, Ryan wasn't around. He had work, he said. Emily stayed upstairs. My mom left a thank you note on the kitchen counter next to a jar of homemade kimchi. My dad double-checked the locks, then handed over the keys like he was returning a rental car. I hugged them both, trying not to let my anger show. They didn't need my rage. They needed dignity. But I saw it in their posture. The slight hunch in my father's back, the stiffness in my mother's shoulders. They were humiliated. A few days later, Emily posted a photo on social media, the living room freshly redecorated, bright and clean. Finally, and the caption read, Our space feels like ours. I wanted to comment, wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just saved the picture. Because one day, when Ryan asks why the family fell apart, I'll send him that image. And I'll say, This is when it broke. My parents tried to keep in touch with him, but the calls got shorter. The visits fewer. He always had an excuse. Too busy, too tired, not feeling well. Emily had a migraine. He needed a nap. My mom still defended him. He's just overwhelmed. My dad? He stopped talking about Ryan at all. There was a heaviness now, a permanent weight on my parents' expressions. They still smiled, still cooked, still watched their game shows together, but something had been taken from them. Not just the house, not just comfort, something deeper, something you can't pack into a suitcase or hang on a wall. I started coming by more, making sure the fridge was full, paying their internet bill, taking Mom to doctor appointments. She always said thank you like it hurt her to say it, like she hated needing help. She didn't deserve this. None of us did. When I moved my parents into the spare bedroom of our townhouse, I told myself it would just be for a little while. A few weeks. A month, maybe. Just until they felt better. until they got back on their feet, until they stopped looking like ghosts in their own skin. I never expected that bringing them in, after everything I had done, after everything that had happened, would end up feeling like the biggest betrayal of all. Not to them. To me. The day I picked them up, my dad was carrying a single duffel bag. My mom had 2 grocery bags of folded clothes and a box with some old framed photos. They didn't pack their books, their dishes, or even their wedding china. I asked why they weren't taking more, and Mom smiled weakly. "We won't stay long. We'll get out of your way soon." I didn't want them to feel like they were in the way, but I didn't know how to undo the damage either. At first things were quiet, too quiet. My husband was kind. He gave them space, tried to make them laugh, always brought back their favorite snacks from the store. But there was something brittle in the air. Like walking across a glass barefoot, they were polite, grateful, but distant. I thought maybe they just needed time to adjust. That's what I told myself. Until one morning I overheard my mom on the phone. She was in the kitchen speaking in a low voice. She didn't know I was awake. I don't want her to feel like I'm judging her. I know she means well, but sometimes I wish she didn't try so hard to fix everything. It makes it worse. There was a pause. Ryan would have understood. He's more easygoing. I stood there, frozen behind the hallway wall. That single sentence stayed with me for days. Ryan would have understood. Ryan, who let them be pushed out of their home. Ryan, who couldn't even show up to help them move. Ryan, who hadn't visited them once they left. He was the understanding one. I kept quiet. I cooked dinner, made sure the heat was on in their room, offered to drive them to appointments. Every time I tried to connect, to talk, really talk, it bounced off a wall I didn't know how to break. They smiled. They nodded. They changed the subject. One evening I brought up the idea of looking for a new apartment for them, somewhere closer to the park, with a bit more sun. My dad looked up from his newspaper and said, "Maybe you should worry about your own home. You're newly married. This isn't your responsibility." "I don't mind," I said gently. "I just want you both to be okay." My mom chimed in then, her voice sharp in a way I hadn't heard since I was a teenager. "You always do this. You always try to take over. It's not your job to fix us." I stared at her. "I didn't—" "You always make us feel like we failed," she continued. "Like you're the only one who's ever sacrificed anything." I felt like I'd been slapped. I set the plates down on the counter and walked upstairs. I didn't cry. Not then. Just sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to ask how, after all this, they could still choose him, because that's what it was, a choice. He let them go. I took them in. He forgot they existed. I remembered their prescriptions, their favorite meals, the temperature they liked the thermostat set to at night, and still, somehow, he was the one they saw as kind, as warm, as easy to be around. They didn't see what he did, or they didn't want to. A week later, I came home from work and found my mom rearranging the spice cabinet. "You don't have to do that," I said. "I know where everything is." "I'm just trying to make it easier," she replied. "For who?" She didn't answer. I tried again. "Is this really how you want to live? In this weird in-between? Pretending like nothing happened?" She paused, then turned to me. "You make everything so dramatic." I blinked. "I'm sorry?" "You always have. Ever since you were little, you hold on to things." "You mean like how you gave Ryan everything? The house, the savings, and then let him and his wife throw you out like trash?" Her face changed, hardened. "Don't talk about your brother like that. You don't know everything that happened." I stepped closer. "I know enough. I know he let her run the show. I know he didn't stand up for you. And I know I'm the only one who showed up when you had nowhere to go." There was silence. Then softly she said, "Sometimes it's not about who shows up. It's about how they make you feel when they do." I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe she said that. "You mean you'd rather be around someone who makes you feel warm while they destroy your life than someone who actually keeps you safe but makes you think a little too hard about the truth?" She didn't answer. That night I lay awake for hours staring at the ceiling. The bed felt smaller somehow. The house felt unfamiliar, like I'd stepped into someone else's life, someone else's pain. And then I realized it was never about what I gave. It was about what I didn't let them forget. I was a mirror, a reminder, of every choice they made. Every time they said, "Ryan just needs more help." every time they called me the strong one, and used it as an excuse to give him more. I had become the living consequence of their favoritism. They didn't want to face it, so they blamed me. The diagnosis came like a storm, with no warning. One moment my father was helping fix the bathroom sink, grumbling about the cheap plastic parts, and the next, he was slumped over the toilet, unable to stand, his skin waxy, his eyes dull like unpolished glass. I still remember the color of the towel we wrapped him in, mustard yellow with a bleach stain on the corner. I held his hand all the way to the hospital, his grip weak but trembling, and I knew, even before the test came back, that this wasn't just a dizzy spell. The ER doctor said they run a few tests just to rule things out, but within hours, more doctors started showing up. They stopped talking in front of us. Started closing the door during conversations. The word oncology was whispered first, then tumor, then finally stage 4. Pancreatic, advanced, terminal. It felt like standing on a frozen lake and hearing the first crack beneath your feet, knowing the fall was coming and still hoping the ice would hold just a little longer. Dad didn't react when we told him. He sat in the hospital bed, IV in his arm, his hands folded over the thin blanket. He blinked slowly and said, "Well, that's that then." My mother broke down. I didn't. I asked for timelines, options, second opinions. I took notes with a shaking pen and scheduled appointments like I wasn't watching the man who raised me turn into someone smaller, frailer, quieter. That night I called Ryan. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, can this wait? We're at dinner. Emily's sister's visiting." "No, it can't wait," I said, already shaking. "It's Dad. He has cancer. Stage 4. He was silent then. "Oh. Just oh. Not what? Not I'm coming. Not tell me everything." Then he added, "How bad is it?" I told him. Every word tasted like metal in my mouth. When I got to the part about needing help, with money, with time, with presence, he exhaled like I was asking too much already. "I talked to Emily," he began. "She thinks it's best if we stay out of this. She's been really anxious lately, and something like this, it would just trigger her. Trigger her. Trigger her." I looked at my father's chart, white paper, black ink spelling out the end of a life, and I listened to my brother talk about triggers, about stress, about protecting our peace. I pressed the phone harder against my ear like maybe I hadn't heard him right. "What are you saying, Ryan?" "I'm saying we're not in a position to help right now, financially or emotionally." I swallowed hard. "You're not going to help pay for treatment? We have bills too, you know. Mortgage, car payments, Emily's therapy." "This is your father!" My voice cracked. "He gave you a house. He gave you everything. And now you won't lift a finger to help him die with dignity?" "You're making this emotional," he said. "No," I said, "I'm making this real." He sighed like I was exhausting. "You've always had a martyr complex." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just said, You're unbelievable." Then I hung up, not because I wanted to, because if I stayed on the line 1 second longer, I would have said something I could never take back. The weeks that followed were a slow descent into quiet horror. My dad moved in with us, pale and tired, but still trying to make jokes. He told my husband not to let me boss him around too much and winked when he couldn't finish his sandwich. Every morning he got a little smaller. Every night I watched the shape of his silhouette in bed flatten against the sheets. Hospice came. A nurse named Lydia taught me how to clean bedpans. I learned how to administer morphine, how to sponge bathe a grown man who once carried me on his shoulders like I weighed nothing. I saw his ribs, counted them, memorized them. Mom tried to be strong, but she was unraveling. She burned rice. Forgot how to log into her email. Once I found her staring into the fridge holding a tomato for 10 full minutes. I offered to take her for a walk. She said she didn't want to miss anything. "He could be gone while we were out," she whispered. I texted Ryan again. Not to beg, just to inform. He replied, "Hope things are manageable. Can't come by. Emily's had a headache for days. Just too much going on." That was the last time I tried. Dad passed on a Tuesday morning. Quiet. No pain. Just an exhale, and then nothing. His hand slipped from mine like a string cut loose. I sat there for an hour before I woke my mother. She knew before I spoke. She pressed her face into his chest and whispered, I'm sorry I didn't fight harder." I didn't tell Ryan until later that day. I couldn't bring myself to. When I did, it was a short message. Dad's gone, 3:12 a.m. at home, peacefully. He texted back 47 minutes later. Sorry to hear. Can't make the funeral. Emily's sister's still here. Let me know if you need anything. I stared at the screen. Let me know if you need anything. Anything but your presence. Anything but a hand to hold. Anything but your spine. At the funeral, we kept it small. A few family friends, some neighbors, the pastor who baptized me. I printed a photo of my father smiling, one from the year before, and placed it on the casket. My mother kept looking toward the door, as if Ryan might burst in, apologetic, weeping, changed. He didn't. I gave the eulogy, spoke of strength, quiet love, sacrifice. I almost mentioned the betrayal, but I didn't. The truth already hung in the air, thick and sour. After the burial, I got into my car, closed the door, and screamed. It didn't fix anything, but it was the first time in months I let myself feel everything. The morning of the funeral was overcast, the sky hanging heavy like it was morning too. I stood by the window of the small chapel, holding my father's worn pocket watch in my hand, something I'd found in the drawer next to his bed after he passed. It still ticked stubbornly, like it didn't realize that time had stopped for the rest of us. Everything about the service was simple, like he would have wanted. No grand gestures, no long speeches, just a photo, a wooden urn, and the people who mattered. Or at least the people who showed up. Ryan wasn't one of them. I hadn't expected him to come early. I'd stopped expecting anything from him a long time ago. But a small, bitter part of me still held on to hope that he'd walk through the chapel doors before we started, that he'd stand beside me, that he'd look me in the eye and finally see what he'd done. He didn't. We started without him. I stepped up to the podium with legs that felt like stone. The words I prepared felt hollow, like I was reading someone else's eulogy. I talked about my father's quiet strength, his love of crossword puzzles, his terrible singing voice in the car. I looked out at the handful of people in the pews. Our neighbor, Mr. Garcia, two of Dad's old co-workers, the hospice nurse who had cried more than my own family. But not Ryan, not Emily, not even a damn flower from them. Halfway through the service, the doors creaked open. Everyone turned to look. Ryan stood there, disheveled, hair damp from the rain, and eyes wide like a kid who got caught sneaking in after curfew. His tie was crooked, his collar wrinkled, and beside him, no one. Emily wasn't with him. He walked down the aisle slowly, head bowed, avoiding everyone's gaze. He slid into the back row without a word. Didn't look at me, didn't look at Mom. I continued my speech, but my voice cracked. I powered through. Not for him, for Dad. After the service, people approached me with hugs and condolences. I nodded, smiled, thanked them like I was programmed to. Mom stayed seated, staring at the urn like she expected to start talking. Ryan didn't move. I finally walked over to him. He looked up, eyes red, face pale. "I'm sorry," he said. I didn't respond. I wanted to come earlier, but he trailed off. Emily didn't feel up for it. Of course she didn't. "Save it," I said quietly. He looked like I slapped him. "You think I don't care?" "I think you didn't show up," I replied, "when it mattered, and when he was alive." He blinked. Tears welled up, spilled over. He wiped them away like a child, shoulders trembling. "He was my dad, too," he said. "No," I snapped. "He was your dad, past tense. And when he needed you, you picked your wife's comfort over his life. Don't cry now like it means something." He covered his face with his hands. "I didn't know it would happen so fast. Cancer doesn't come with a countdown, Ryan. It doesn't wait for your schedule to clear." My mother finally walked over, clutching her purse with trembling fingers. She looked at Ryan, eyes glassy. "You look tired," she said. He broke down, right there, in the middle of the chapel. Loud, ugly sobs that drew glances from the rest of the mourners. He dropped to his knees beside her and buried his face in her lap. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I didn't know. I didn't know how bad it was. I thought I had more time." She didn't say anything, just ran her fingers through his hair, like he was still her little boy. And maybe that's what made me the angriest. Because I was the one who watched Dad fade. I was the one who cleaned him, fed him, listened to his breathing grow slower each night. I was the one who held his hand when he let go. But Ryan cried once. And suddenly it was okay. Number not this time. Weeks passed. Ryan didn't call. I didn't care. But then one afternoon I got a knock on the door. It was him. He looked worse than before. Thinner, like grief had gnawed at him and left him hollow. "I'm not here to fight," he said. "I just need to talk." I let him in. He sat at the kitchen table like it was foreign territory. "Emily left," he said after a long silence. I didn't react. She said I changed. Said I wasn't fun anymore. Said I was depressed, distant. Maybe she didn't like seeing who you really are. He flinched. "She took everything," he continued. "The car, the savings, the house I froze." "The house?" He nodded. "She made me sign over her half when we refinanced. I didn't read the papers closely. I trusted her." "Of course he did." "She left a note," he added. "Said I wasn't who she married." "Maybe that's the only thing she got right," I said. He looked up at me. "I don't blame you for hating me. I hate me too." I didn't say anything. He reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. "These are the papers. What's left of the house, the land. Dad's old accounts. I want you to have them." I stared at it. "I don't want this," I said. "I know," he replied, "but I need to give it to you." He stood up. "I'm leaving town," he said. "I need to start over, somewhere far. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, not just for the funeral, for everything." He paused at the door. "You were the strong one," he said. "They always said it like it was a compliment, but it wasn't fair. We should have seen you sooner." And then he left. I stood there for a long time holding the folder, unsure if I felt relief or rage or nothing at all. Maybe all three. It had been almost a full year since the funeral. A quiet year. One where my mother slowly learned to smile again. Where my husband and I went on short walks just to feel the air. Where I finally stopped checking my phone for texts that would never come. I hadn't heard from Ryan in over 10 months. No calls, no emails, no birthday messages, not even a like on the photo I posted of Dad's memorial bench in the park. For all I knew, he'd vanished. And honestly, I was fine with that. Until he showed up at my door. It was a rainy Thursday morning, the kind of rain that feels personal, cold, relentless, soaked into your bones before you even realize it. I had just finished cleaning the kitchen when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the peephole, and there he was, Ryan. He looked older. Not just tired, but worn down, like the world had sanded off all the easy parts of him. His clothes were soaked through, his face pale, eyes sunken. In his hand was a small envelope, crumpled at the corners like he'd been holding it for hours. I opened the door slowly. He didn't speak right away, just stood there blinking at me like he wasn't sure if I was real. Then finally he said, "Hi." I didn't move. "What do you want?" He hesitated. "Can I come in?" "Just for a minute." I stared at him, arms crossed, heart hammering, then stepped aside. He walked in like a ghost, silently, cautiously, as if the house might reject him. He sat on the edge of the couch, dripping water into the hardwood floor. I didn't offer a towel. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he began. "I just needed to talk to you. One last time." I didn't sit. Just leaned against the wall, arms folded. "I lost everything," he said quietly. "Emily left. Took the house, the savings, even the car. Turns out everything we had was in her name, or half hers at least. She'd been preparing for this for months, had a lawyer, an exit plan. I said nothing. She said I was too much, too broken. That grief made me boring, that I wasn't ambitious anymore. I let the silence hang, let it choke the room. She took Ryan Jr. too," he added. "I only get to see him twice a month if she's in a good mood." I felt something twist in my chest. Pity? Maybe, but not enough to erase everything. He pulled something from his jacket, the envelope. "This is all I have left. The land behind the house, some old bonds Dad gave me when I turned 18, and the deed to the shed we used to play in as kids. I want you to have it, all of it." He held it out to me, hands shaking. I didn't move. "You think this fixes things?" I asked. "No," he said quickly. "I know it doesn't. I'm not here for forgiveness." "Then why are you here?" He looked up at me, eyes brimming. "Because I needed you to know that I know. I know what I did. I know I abandoned him, and you. I know I was a coward, that I hid behind her. That I used her as an excuse to do nothing, and now I have nothing. My voice trembled despite myself. You had every chance to do the right thing. Every chance. And you chose wrong. Over and over. He nodded, tears streaming down now. I know. I stepped forwards, took the envelope, stared down at it. I don't want your scraps, Ryan. I know. He stood up, wiped his face on his sleeve. I'm leaving town. Got a job offer in another state. It's not much, warehouse work, but it's honest. No one there knows who I am. He walked to the door, paused, then turned back. You were always the better one. We all knew it. But we let you suffer because you were quiet. Because you didn't make us pay for it. He looked down at his shoes. Thank you for not slamming the door in my face. And then he left. Just like that. No big goodbye, no hugs, no promises. Just rain and silence, and a man who finally understood the cost of everything he took for granted. I sat down on the couch, the envelope still in my hands. Inside were deeds, keys, faded bank documents, all that remained of what once was his empire. It didn't feel like justice, it felt like grief wrapped in paperwork, but it was something. And for once, it was mine. Blind love doesn't save a family, it breaks it. When parents give everything to one child while expecting the other to stay quiet, to be the bigger person, to sacrifice without complaint, they aren't raising a balanced family. They're creating wounds that may never heal. My parents thought they were loving my brother by giving him every advantage, excusing every mistake, handing him everything he wanted without question. But what they really did was enable his weakness, feed his entitlement, and ignore the emotional labor I carried in silence. Love needs limits. Fairness doesn't mean giving the loudest child the most. And gender should never determine value. Sons aren't more important than daughters, and daughters shouldn't be expected to be strong just because they can be. If you've ever been the overlooked one, the one told to understand, while your sibling was praised for doing the bare minimum, let this be a reminder. You do not need to earn love by proving your worth. You are not selfish for choosing peace. You are not ungrateful for setting boundaries. You are not wrong for refusing to carry what never should have been yours. You matter, even if they only notice when you're gone. And now, I want to ask you, what would you have done if you were me? Would you forgive a brother who only came back when he had nothing left? And would you give him another chance or let the past stay buried? I want to know, so drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice deserves to be heard.